John DeSando.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with our friends. Turn off our cell phones and get away. Night or day, it's John DeSando on the radio. We'll watch the credits from up high and low. Cinema Classics on air.
Cinema Classics is produced and hosted by John DeSando. Listen to shows Thursdays at 8:01 p.m. on WCBE 90.5 FM. And listen to shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
I'm Wayne Miller.
And this is Cinema Classics.
Yes, and do we have a classics
No,
today?
listen, no, wait though. December 25th, I know. All right?
Yeah.
What about now, is it December 4th?
September 5th.
No, but
Oh,
I'm just thinking of famous dates.
I can't.
This would be...
It's September 11th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
and December 7th.
It's the 7th.
Yes, December 7th, Pearl Harbor.
Right, Pearl Harbor. So people have to get used to the fact that a similar date,
Yes.
can bring up very, very strong memories. And this is September 5, which happens to be the title of our film today.
It certainly is. And it does kind of sound like what recently they keep talking about. The latest attack on Israel was October 6th. And so they talk about that. That's a day that for the Jewish people live in infamy.
Yeah.
As well as September 11th because, of that horrendous attack that, we have.
And January 6th.
January 6th, definitely.
We're beginning to fill up this calendar.
I know, with infamous date, events going on.
All right,
Yeah.
September 5th is a docudrama.
Yes.
And so just kind of lay it out there without taking a happy...
And so, really, from the standpoint of the ABC sports crew, this was, John, what's interesting, this was the first Olympics to be broadcast live via satellite. And it boasted more, especially what was going on here September 5th. And basically, it's about 8 Palestinian terrorists called Black September that took over the rooms that there were 9 or 11, something like that.
Well, there are 11 altogether because
9
of the coach.
athletes and 2 coaches, yes. Yeah. And what's interesting when I was reading, and they stated in the movie, that there's more viewership of that than the moon landing about 3 years before.
Well, I think they estimate somewhere around 100 million people.
Yes. 800 million. And that's and what's interesting, I really like the script because of the cinema verite handheld camera, and this film, the original screenplay's been nominated for an Oscar. For best original screenplay. But John, it's from that standpoint of the news crew, where the sports crew, the news crew wanted to take it over. And they said, no, we're here, we're on it. And these people didn't know in some ways what they were doing, but boy, did they really, on an ad hoc fashion, really knock it out of the park as far as showing some images.
Yes.
Like the one terrorist coming out on the balcony and looking around and he had like a ski mask.
Well, you point out one thing that really fascinates me, and that is the process through which they were going through, because some people would want all of the background information about this and all of the ramifications with Israel and Palestine and the U.S. And actually these people are interested in showing you what it's like to be a crew that's handled only sports. Then all of a sudden they're giving this monumental live activity that they have to cover they've never done before.
Yes, and really, and like I said, this really, you are their type of, not only, kind of like when we saw SNL, about Saturday Night Live.
I think it's much like SNL with that
Very
energy.
much like it, with the handheld and the darkened studios and stuff like that, but mixed with it, the archival footage of the event that took place outside of the studio.
Actually, everything that we get, most of what we get is right there and on the set.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yet we have archival photography that takes us outside. And I think they did a superb job of integrating the two.
Which, in some ways, I was wondering, am I seeing a recreation of the events outside, like particularly, as the terrace we mentioned coming
Yes.
out on the balcony. But what was really, really interesting, that it didn't even dawn on them. This is how new something like this was, especially for a sports crew. That there, as they cameras and everything, they could see inside these apartments or hotel rooms or whatever, and the TV's on. And the one guy, the producer, who's a great character actor, who did a great job with this.
John McGarrell?
Yes.
Yes.
And that he did a great. And he said, "Do you think they're watching what we're broadcasting?" And sure enough, they were.
No, that's the role that I would have liked. He plays Jeffrey Mason, a producer. And the role I like is when you call for every shot.
Yes.
You sit there and say, camera 1, camera 2,
Yeah.
and I think that is the most artful and the most powerful part of the movie is to see him, and he's cool. I mean, he's really a newbie at all this.
He certainly is, and he did a great job. And he had kind of a mentor in, I think, the director of the ABC Sports Crew, Loon Arledge.
Yes.
Who I thought did an excellent job, the actor Peter Sarsgaard.
Yeah.
And which I've seen in a number of TV shows. And John, you may remember him, he was recently played a very bad guy in the remake of The Magnificent Seven. He was the leader that was trying to take over the town, the Denzel Washington's Magnificent Seven.
That one, I try to forget that
Yeah,
one.
I know, because you're a big, huge
I'm
fan
an original purist.
Yeah.
But Aldrich, Roon,
Yeah.
subsequently became the head of ABC,
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah, very well known, real hard driver, and you get that aspect of his personality in this movie.
But it's not all men,
No.
because there's a woman,
And that did.
a heroine as far as I'm concerned.
Who tried to negotiate in a way that or at least talked with, the terrorists.
Marianne Gebhardt.
Yes.
Yes,
And I can't wait, because we'll get more into it during the podcast.
okay.
But, similar type of character in a made-for-TV movie. But I digress, and we'll save that for the podcast. But, John, you mentioned that it reminds you of how it was made of this Saturday Night Live.
Yeah,
What really got me thinking was how one of my favorite movies, 2006, Oscar nominated, Paul Greengrass directed it, United 93. About another day in that we talked about, September 11th, and when the passengers and crew tried to take over the plane from the terrorists there on 9/11.
yeah.
And we know how it's going to end. And that's the interesting thing, how this movie still can keep suspense,
It's the
because we
genius.
know exactly how
It's
it's
Hollywood
going to end.
genius as far as I'm concerned.
Yes,
How
it
can they
is.
keep me on my seat
Yeah,
for more than
yeah.
an hour and a half?
And I was really interested in this because it brought back an interesting memory of my fiance at the time. As we watched the Olympics, the 72 Olympics on TV, her grandparents were over there. They were huge Olympic fans. In fact, they took us in 1976 to the Montreal Summer Olympics. But anyhow, when this was all playing out, and we hadn't heard from her grandparents over there, wondering what's happening. And I remember him, and of course, being a historian, I really liked it. He came when they got back, and he was telling me what it was like to be a sports fan, a spectator of these games, and how the games went on, but it was very hard to get to and from the stadiums and everything.
Well, all right. We have plenty of time coming up in our podcast. You
Yes.
have to go to WCBE.org to the podcast experience and to Double Take to hear more about what we have to say. And I think we'll probably talk a little bit about journalism movies
Yes.
and a little bit about hostage movies.
Yes.
And I shudder to think what you have prepared.
Well, John, I know you're gonna ask me what I recommend.
Yes.
I would recommend people to go see this. Reviews have been mostly good. There have
All right.
been a few that said, they thought they wanted to know more about the motivation behind the terrorists. I thought, that's not what this movie's
No,
about.
this is about process.
Exactly.
And if you're a student out there taking a communication major,
Yes.
you might want to watch this, because I don't think even after 50 years, the dance that they
Yes.
do in the studio is wholly different from this one. It's just better technology. You don't have to haul out a huge camera to
Yes.
get an outside shot.
Yes.
So with the technology has really improved. But basically, who calls the shots? This is up to the people in charge, and in this case, it was Aldridge and the Mason, who
Yeah.
were the two of them. So let's look forward to that on our Double Take podcast.
Cinema, 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 cinema. Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda